Okay, dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Let's just start the first live revision class for PM. The session is March 2025. And in today's class, we will be revising activity-based costing through questions. And since it is the first class, so will not be very long. But after that, obviously, the duration of the live revision classes will definitely increase. So PM March 25, first live revision class. The topic we are revising is activity-based costing. Actually, ABC costing is the alternative of absorption costing. ABC is the alternative of absorption costing. Now, actually, the question is, what are the problems in absorption costing that we need alternative of ABC? Basically, in absorption costing, the biggest problem is under absorption costing, we do not have the fair allocation of overheads. So the biggest problem in absorption costing is there is no fair allocation of overheads. But when it comes to ABC, activity based costing, so ABC claims that we will tell you the fair allocation of overheads. So ABC, basically they have introduced the concept, the name of the concept is cost driver. Cost driver. The reason to incur the cost, that is the cause to incur the cost. So according to ABC costing, there's a concept, the name of the concept is cost driver. Cost driver is the cost to incur the cost. So under ABC costing, what are we going to do? We will be calculating number of ABC rate by using cost drivers. So the biggest difference in ABC and absorption costing is under absorption costing, there is no fair allocation of overheads, but ABC claims that we will give you the fair allocation of overheads due to utilization of the concept of cost drivers. Another thing is obviously the total overheads under absorption costing and total overheads under ABC, the total will be same, but per unit ABC rate is going to be different as compared to absorption costing, which means that if I'm utilizing ABC to calculate what will be the per unit overhead cost, that is going to be different as compared to absorption costing. Now the question is, if under ABC costing we can get the fair allocation of overhead, so what are the benefits? There are a number of benefits. It will definitely help you in decision making. There's a possibility that your one product is a loss making product just because of problem of absorption costing, just because of unfair allocation of overheads. Another possibility, let's say there is your existing product which you believe it is highly profitable. Now again, it is possible it is highly profitable because of unfair allocation of overheads. Under ABC, the thinking, the decision making might change. There's a possibility the profitable product under absorption costing might become a loss making under ABC. It could be vice versa. The loss making product under absorption costing might be a profitable product under ABC. Now, come here. Another thing is under ABC costing, we will be calculating ABC rate for each cost pool. What is the concept of cost pool? Basically, in cost pool, what do we do? Cost pool shows the aggregated cost of the same activity which is carried out for number of times. So we'll be calculating ABC rate for each cost pool. And I hope you people have seen ABC costing in detail. Now let us quickly start the questions. Question 1, you can say. A company makes products A and B. It is experimenting with ABC costing. Production setup cost is 12,000. Production setup cost is 12,000. Total production will be 20,000 units of each of products A and product B. Total production will be 20,000 units of product A. It means 20,000 units of product A and 20,000 units of product B. Each run is 1,000 units of A and 5,000 units of B. So each run 1,000 units of A and 5,000 units of B. Now what they are asking? Using activity-based costing, what is the setup cost per unit of A? Give your answer to the nearest cents. Using activity-based costing, what is the setup cost per unit of A? Give your answer to the nearest cents. Okay. First of all, actually, we have to calculate the total number of setups. In one run of product A, we produce 1,000 units. And one run of product B, we produce 5,000 units. And the total units are 20,000 for each product, which means that 20,000 divided by 1,000 obviously will give us 20. 20,000 divided by 5,000 will give us 4. So the total number of setups, they are 24. So the total number of setups, they are 24. Production setup cost is $12,000 and total setups, they are 24. It means if we calculate per setup cost, another thing is this $12,000. This is simply the cost of your this is 12,000 is representing the total cost of a cost pool. So the amount of the cost pool is $12,000 for total number of setups, and total number of setups are 24. So very easily we can calculate per setup cost. So students, what is the per setup cost? So ABC rate per setup. We'll take $12,000 total setup cost divided by total number of setups. Let me use the calculator. 12,000 divided by 24. So per setup it is 500. Per setup it is 500. But this 500 is not our answer. They're asking something else. They're asking us, using ABC costing, what is the setup cost per unit for A? Okay. Total number of setups for product A, they are 20. Total number of setups for product A, they are 20. And per setup cost is 500. Repeat. Total number of setups for product A, they are 20. And per setup cost is 500, which means that if I calculate that, or you can say if we allocate setup cost to product A, actually the total number of setups, they are 24. But out of 24, obviously 20 setups, 20 times we bear the setup cost because of product A. So a very major part of production setup cost will be allocated to product A. So it means setup cost of product A, 20 into 500, that gives us 10,000. Again, this is not the answer. They're asking us to calculate setup cost per unit of product A. Setup cost per unit of product A. Total number of units, there are 20,000. Total setup cost which we have allocated to product A, they are 10,000. It means that per unit setup cost. So setup cost per unit of product A is equal to 10,000 divided by 20,000 units. So obviously I'll get $0.50 per unit. So your answer is $0.50 per unit. So what we did, number one, we calculated total number of setups, then we calculated cost per setup. After that, we allocated the setup cost to product A. And obviously, once you have allocated the setup cost to product A, then after that, what we did, total setup cost which is allocated to product A divided by the total number of units of product A, which are 20,000. So this is setup cost per unit of product A 0.50. Now come here. Which of the following statement is true regarding ABC costing? A cost pool. Actually, what happens in cost pool when the same activity we are carrying out again and again, the total is the cost pool. Like $12,000 is a total setup cost. But this $12,000 does not represent one times setup cost. It actually shows the cost of total 24 setups. And obviously, every time when we are going to bear the setup cost, so every time the resources will be consumed. So how many times the resources will be consumed in the question which we just did it? 24 times. Now come here. A cost pool is an activity which consumes resources and for which overheads are identified and what? Allocated. True. An activity based, like look at question number 31. Setup cost is $12,000. So logically, this $12,000 cost is incurred due to 24 setups. So look at this. A cost pool is an activity which consumes resources and for which overhead costs are identified and allocated. Now, an ABC costing overhead absorption rate is calculated in the same way as an absorption costing overhead absorption rate will result in the same overhead absorption being calculated for each cost pool. False. Obviously, the way we calculate the rate under absorption costing in ABC, that is obviously the same. You will take budgeted overheads divided by budgeted activity. But under ABC, what happens? Under ABC, what happens? For each cost pool, you will be calculating a separate overhead absorption rate. For each cost pool, there will be a separate overhead absorption rate. So it will not be same. It will be different, obviously. So that is why statement number 2 is false, 1 is true. So the answer is alpha. Now look at this. Question 33, whatever you say. What is the setup cost per unit of product B to 2 decimal places? A company uses activity-based costing to allocate the unit cost of its product. The figure for period 3 are as for production setup cost is 84. Earlier we just did the similar question. At that time the cost was 12,000. Now it is 84. Okay. Now they are saying the total production is 40. In the previous question it was 20. So the total production is 40,000 units of each of products A and B. Earlier each product was having 20,000 units, now 40. Each run is 2,000 units of A and 5,000 units of B. And we are required to calculate this time setup cost per unit of product B. So let's see. We have two products A and B. Total number of units are 40,000. 40. Okay. Each run. In each run of product A, we produce 2,000 units. In case of B, 5,000. After every run, actually, you have to bear the setup cost. After every run, you have to bear the setup cost. So 40,000 divided by 2,000. I'm getting 20, and 40 divided by 5, I'll get 8. So the total number of setups, they are 28. Total number of setups, they are 28. So very easily we can calculate ABC per setup rate. ABC per setup rate. Total setup cost is 84,000. Divided by 28. So 84,000 divided by 28. I'm getting 3,000. So ABC rate per setup is 3,000. ABC rate per setup is 3,000, but this time we are required to calculate setup cost per unit of product B. There are total 28 setups. Out of that, 8 belongs to B. It means setup cost for product B. Setup cost for product B. Total number of setups, there are 8 in product B. Per setup, the cost is 3,000. It means 8 multiplied by 3,000. I'm getting 24,000. So the setup cost which is allocated to product B, they are 24,000. How many units we are producing? Obviously 40,000. It is written in the question, and 40 is for the each product. So per unit setup cost. Now we can easily calculate setup cost per unit of product B. 24,000 divided by 40,000. So 24 divided by 40. Students, I'm getting $0.60. Both the questions are similar, 31 and 33. Now, let's see the next question, 34. Using traditional method of overhead absorption based on labor hours. Basically, when it comes to absorption costing, either we use machine hours or labor hours. Here it is categorically mentioned that is labor hours. Using a traditional method of absorption based on labor hours, what is the overhead cost per unit of each product of alpha to 2 decimal places? Using traditional method of overhead absorption based on labor hours. If we are calculating overhead rate on the basis of labor hours, so simply what are we going to do? We'll take budgeted overheads divided by budgeted activity level, and here the budgeted activity level will be labor hours. Using a traditional method of absorption costing on labor, what is the cost, overhead cost per unit? Okay. FOH rate, how will we calculate? We'll take budgeted FOH divided by budgeted activity level. And this time activity level, obviously it is mentioned labor hours. FOH rate. The ABC company manufactures 2 products, products alpha and beta. Both produce in a very labor intensive environment and similar process. Alpha and beta differ by volume. Beta is a high volume product, while alpha is a low volume product. Details of the product inputs, output, and the cost activity are as follows. Direct labor hours per unit, both take the same labor hours per unit, but alpha is having a very low volume, just 1200 units. Beta is having 12,000 units. Then they have given us number of purchases, number of setups, fixed overhead total is 4,20,000. So it means that 4,20,000. Very easily we can calculate labor hours. Annual output is 12,000. One unit takes 5 hours. It means 12 into 5 for alpha. For beta, it is 12,000 into 5. Because one unit of beta takes 5 hours, one unit of alpha takes 5 hours, but annual volume is different. So let's calculate the total labor hours. 1200 into 5 plus 12,000 into 5. I'm getting 66,000. So labor hours are 66,000. Very easily we can calculate now FOH rate per unit, in fact, per labor hour. Right now, per labor hour we can calculate because 66,000 they are labor hours. So budgeted fixed overhead is 4,20,000 divided by budgeted activity level, which is labor hours. So students, I am getting 6.3636. So this is your FOH rate per labor hour. So FOH rate per labor hour is 6.36. Now come here. They're asking us FOH cost per unit of product A, alpha, and one unit of alpha takes 5 hours. So FOH per unit. FOH rate is 6.36 per labor hour. One unit takes 5 hours, which means that's 6.36 into 5. 6.36 into 5. Students, I'm getting 31.8. I'm getting 31. They're asking us to go for 2 decimal. Okay. We can go for, then let's do this. 4,20,000 divided by 66. So this is 3636 per labor hours. So come here, let's see. 6.3636 into 5. 6.3636. So we are getting 31.818. Since they're asking for 2 decimals, so 31.82. With a little bit rounding off, 31.82. Question 35. Using traditional method of overhead absorption on labor hours, what is the overhead cost per unit for the product beta? Earlier we calculated for alpha. Now look at this. Number of labor hours per units, they are same. If number of labor hours per unit, they are same. So obviously absorption rate, which we have calculated per labor hour, it is same. So simply per unit overhead for alpha and per unit overhead for beta is exactly the same because both require the same number of labor hours per unit. So same means Charlie. Both the products, they require the same number of labor hours per unit. That is why FOH rate is same per unit for both the products. Okay, using activity-based costing as a method of overhead absorption, what is the overhead cost per unit for each unit of product alpha? To do decimal places. Using ABC costing as the method of overhead absorption. Actually, first of all, by using ABC costing, we have to allocate the overheads. After that, we can easily calculate overhead per unit for each product of alpha. Let's try. The ABC company manufactures two products, product alpha and beta. Both are produced in a very labor intensive environment using similar process, alpha and beta. differ by volume. Beta is a high volume product, we know that. Okay. Volume related. Total fixed overhead, there are 420. Now examiner has given you the breakup. So 1 lakh, 145, 175. The total is 420. So volume related is 1 lakh. Volume related means, look at this. I'll go for labor hours. So basically, number one, we have to calculate what are the total labor hours. Purchasing related means I'll go for number of purchase orders. Setup related, I'll go for number of setups. So basically, examiner has given you the cost pool. Examiner has also given you the total cost driver for the number of purchase order. They are 160. Total cost driver for number of setups, they are 100. Labor hours, we have already calculated. That is 1200 into 5 plus 12,000 into 5, 66,000. Labor hours will be used for the overhead which is volume related. So let me repeat. First of all, we will find out. We will simply, you can say, allocate the volume related overheads to product alpha and beta, and then and similarly purchase related overheads. How much purchase related overheads they actually belong to alpha, how much they belong to beta, and setup also. So let's try the same approach which we did previously as well. Question 36. Volume related. Overheads. Purchase related. And let's say setup related. Volume related, it is 1 lakh. Cost volume related is 1 lakh. Purchasing related is 1,45,000. Setup is 1,75,000. Simply, we have to take the cost drivers. For volume related, the cost driver is labor hours, which we have already calculated 66,000. That is labor hours. Purchase related, they have already given us number of purchase orders 160. And total number of setups they are 100. Now basically for each cost pool, we can calculate separate ABC rate. Simply 100,000 divided by 66. What are we getting, students? 1 lakh divided by 66. 1 lakh divided by 66. I'm getting 1.5151. This is per labor hour. Now 1,45,000 divided by 160. I'm getting 906.25 per purchase order. 906.25 per purchase order. Per setup, can I say 1,75,000 divided by 100? The per setup is 1750. That is per setup. Okay. Now come here. When it comes to product alpha, so we have to allocate that how many volume related overheads what is the amount of volume related overheads which actually belongs to alpha and remaining obviously belongs to beta? So let's calculate. Product alpha first. ABC rate per labor hour is 1.5151. This is per labor hour. And product alpha takes 6,000 hours. So simply 6,000 into 1.5151. Let me use a calculator. 6,000 into 1.5151. I'm getting 90906. So we are getting 9090, just a minute, 0.6. So 6,000 into 1.5151. So 9090.6. This is for alpha. Beta. Simply for beta, we have 60,000 labor hours into 1.5151. So 60 multiplied by 1.5151. We're getting 90906. So we have allocated the volume related cost, that how much volume related belongs to alpha and beta. Now same applies on purchase order. Let's see. Number of purchase orders, they belong to alpha, they are 75, and number of purchase order which belongs to beta, they are 85. So check again. 75 and 85. So multiply by 906.25. Multiply by 906.25. So 75 multiplied by 906.25. This is the cost which belongs to alpha. I'm getting 67,968.75. 67,600, no, 968.75. 85 multiplied by 906.25. I'm getting 77,031.25. Now purchase orders. Let's see. Product alpha is having 40 purchase order. We have done number of setups. Total setups are 100. Out of that 100, 40 belongs to alpha, 60 belongs to beta. And per setup cost is 1750. So alpha 1750 into 40. 1750 into 40. Let me use a calculator. 1750 into 40. I'm getting 70,000. For product beta, there are 60. So it means 1750 into 60. 1750 into 60. I'm getting 1,05,000. So students, we have allocated the overheads to alpha as well as beta. Now let's go to the requirement. Using ABC costing as the method of absorption, using ABC costing as the method of overhead absorption, what is the overhead cost per unit of each product of alpha? each product of alpha. Okay. Overhead cost per unit of alpha. Now listen and listen carefully. Is equal to, you can do this. The total overheads which belongs to product alpha, volume related, that is 9090.6. For purchase order related, it is 67,000. 67,968.75. Setup is 70. Let me use the calculator. What is the total? 9090.6 plus 67,968.75. 75 plus 70,000. Students, I'm getting 1,47,059.35. So the total overheads which belongs to product alpha, they are 1,47,059.35. Now very easily we can calculate per unit. Per unit. So under absorption costing, overheads per unit that for product alpha will be 1,47,059.35 divided by product alpha is having 1,200 units. So I'm getting 122.549, or you can say that 122.55 with a little bit rounding off. Per unit overhead for product alpha, it is 122.55. Okay, students. Now come here. I'm just giving you a little homework, but I really want every one of you to attempt this because it's a first class. That is why, as I mentioned earlier, also the class will not be long. But after that, obviously, the duration of the class will increase. And let me tell you, we will be revising the entire course through questions, questions of section A, B, and C. But obviously, before attending the live revision classes, I would request please try to complete the lectures as soon as possible. And during the lecture, if you have any queries, you can always ask in your WhatsApp group. Another thing is just for the coming week, just for the 1 week, which is the coming week, there will be no live revision class because of meetup ASS. We have kept the meetup at this time in Malaysia. So inshallah, just there will be off of only 1 week. There will be in the next week, actually, you can say that there's no live revision class. After that, inshallah, there will be live revision classes, plus the duration of the class will increase as well. And while watching the lecture, if you have any queries, you can always ask in your WhatsApp group, and even you can ask during the live revision classes as well. So thank you very much, and see you all inshallah in the next class, and please try to complete the lectures as soon as possible. Thank you very much.